What's up, everybody? This is Drew, and I want to welcome you back to Learn How to See Better. It's the only podcast out there that'll improve your vision the longer you listen. And today I want to talk about something near and dear to my heart, and that's lifelong learning. I know, kind of a crazy concept, lifelong learning. Now, based on this time I'm recording, I'm in my 40s. I've been around for decades. So I've been learning a long time, and I got a lot of decades left. But I want to share something about this lifelong learning concept that might shift your perspective on it if this sounds foreign or not really something you're on board with. So I'll tell you this, I picked up this concept first when I was, late teen, probably a freshman, taking some of my first courses. And I remember the first course I took in engineering. And it was really to introduce me to the major, give me a feel for what would unfold. And it didn't matter if you were focused on electrical engineering or chemical engineering. It wasn't about being a mechanical engineer or a civil engineer or an industrial engineer or a biological engineer or even an aerospace engineer. You're just in engineering. And in this course, one of the key themes that they really brought together for us as we learned a bunch of different things we'd never done before through the course of the semester was that you've got to really embrace the idea of learning and being prepared for learning continuously. Not only, this is way beyond the fact that the degree was one of the hardest on the campus to get, but that you needed to be prepared to learn continuously and throughout your lifetime, not until you're 3 years into your career, 10 years into your career, until you're 20 years, but through your lifetime, retirement and everything included. And it's wild in concept because, I mentioned and hinted at my age. And the way time flies, I've got nieces and nephews now, graduating high school. I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember what it was like. And at the speed of thought, I can transplant back to 20 plus years ago. And I can remember the ideas and the thought processes of being, 17, 18 years old, getting out of school. And maybe you're going to college, maybe you weren't. But the idea was like, I'm not reading another book ever again. And granted, if you had, college semester lined up ahead, it was just for a couple months. And if you're on into the workforce to do other things, it's like, I don't have to read anything else. I don't have to go to class. I don't have to, sit through the lectures of high school. I'm a grown up now. Nobody tells me what to do. This the attitude. All good, right? But to be fair, as a more mature adult, as I've learned how to see better through this experience I've had, I kind of reflect on that attitude, and I'll realize, wow, that's a stark comparison to, how I might have felt, fresh out of school, senior graduating high school, and then just a year later as a freshman, and they're kind of preparing you for the next few years of college and the really tough courses that were going to be in the future and the learning path that we'd have to go on and the diverse learning opportunities we'd have within that curriculum. It appealed to me to kind of take that on and recognize that, wow, I'm doing some pretty cool things here at, 18, 19 years old that I'm learning about. And in no time, they say your 20s fly by. So, no time you'll be double your age. What if you had double your knowledge? That might sound a little wild, but even at the very first concept of other things I'd learned, I was an engineering major. We didn't really take classes in finance, but at a certain point I learned about the power of compound interest. They say that's, the eighth greatest wonder of the world. And at a certain point I remember thinking, if I could get just like 1% better every year, kind of slow poking it, by 20 years, you're 20% better, 30 years, 30% better. But, really it's a magnitude of compounding when we start to think about our personal development. And the first skeptics might not be on board with that and say, well, you might not be, 30%, smarter or 30% more wealthy or 30% more healthy. They might not agree. But on the flip side of it, yeah, you're right. It might not be 30%. It might be 300% for some. The ability of individuals to transform through their education and how they can take different actions based on what they learn. And so when you look at learning for a lifetime, it's like, wow, how powerful could you be in a decade or two? You plan to be around, right? So looking at that is something I picked up early on and how it kind of shaped how I looked at things. And granted, hit the fast forward button and you've gone through all the school, you've gone through you're in your career, you're into entrepreneurial ventures, or you're into family and relationships that are more significant. There's still learning that has to continue. Life's still going to teach you those lessons. You still got to stay plugged into some sort of source. You still got to get plugged into information and a better way of seeing. Got to stay plugged in to stay lit up, kind of like a Christmas tree. So thinking about that, even present day, it's summer 2025 right now. It's a hot season. I live in Arizona. Compound word, root, arid, combined with zone, arid zone, hot, dry area, Arizona. It's hot. As at the time of this recording, it's supposed to be close to 115 degrees Fahrenheit today. A lot of folks are on vacation. It's a great time to get away. You know the old school song, school's out for the summer. But not if you've embraced lifelong learning. And just because I learned it in some class back in the, whatever, late 90s, doesn't mean that that's just for first semester, second semester, sophomore year, junior year. And it's not for only when school's in session during those semesters. Lifelong means year round. What are you learning today? What did you learn yesterday? What do you plan to learn tomorrow? It's like these don't have to be dramatic, life-changing, drastically massive shifting experiences on a daily basis, but just little ahas. Sometimes little nuggets can pick you up. Things that maybe you store for later. Maybe you can tell certain things you come across, they're not all the way for you right now. You might just learn something you could help somebody else with. And part of your joy coming from being able to pick up a nugget, sharing it with someone else, knowing it maybe helps you later as well. Might be something you already kind of knew, but now when you experience things in a new way, get your understanding refined, make things a little more clear to you so that you can see how to apply those learnings for enhanced quality of life. So it's not like this idea of learning for a lifetime is, all that brand new information. It's a concept you've known, but sometimes we might discount the idea of relearning something. The purpose of learning is mastery. So when we just maybe speed through to stack on things that feel like we know them, and maybe they're really memorized, we may find that there's a deeper layer that we've got to get to with our understanding. I mean, I've had lessons where it's like, let's say you're going around a mountain, when you come, or, you picture, the birthday hat, like the cone, you tie a string around it. And it's like you're going around and around and around on your way up. But sometimes it's like you can hit that same spot again. Almost there's this spot on the mountain, at the 12 o'clock spot on the mountain, we've got this trial or tribulation that you're going to face. But each height and each step up the ladder, each step up the mountain, you're not at the same spot. It's like you're a different you, and that challenge at the 12 o'clock is at a different level. And so sometimes there's seasonal learnings that you get to explore, whether it's back to school, if you're in school mode, whether it's parenting, going into fifth grade, going into sixth grade, and going into seventh grade. They're all kind of the same, but they're all way different if you ask a fifth, sixth, or seventh grader. And it's like, you're just having another kid, right? Hey, it's way different than the kid before this and the kid before that. No two people are the same. No two experiences in that regard, no two learning experiences are going to be the same in that regard. So when you look at the way you learn and you look at your different experiences and how they can teach you, it's so powerful if we will allow our minds to be open to that learning. So half the learning is like the openness of the mindset. Learning how to see better is being willing to recognize that your eyesight may not be perfect. Your vision may not be perfect. Your perspective may need to be recalibrated at some point, or periodically. You know that saying where this isn't happening to you, it's happening for you? That's a great quote that sums up this lesson. Certain things will come our way in life to teach us in ways that we didn't pick up the lesson the first time. So now we're going to go back around that mountain again and then hit that 12 o'clock spot where at level 4, it's the same premise, the same moral of the story, but you didn't pick it up at level 3, level 2, level 1. You got to pass, but now you get to see, okay, there's a little bit of a spot here that we need to address. And once you put all that together and you can recognize that the attitude of lifelong learning, that's a real gem. It's something that could be a game changer at any age. You're the oldest you've ever been right now. Think about all the experiences you've had and how you could compile those and use that to teach you even today. And I'm not talking about drudging up bad memories or hanging on to, past, fame and fortune that's no longer relevant or something like that. But what I'm talking about is using those understandings, using the information, learning how to process all of this in ways that can be valuable lessons. There's lessons that come with our experiences. There's warnings that come with our experiences and those that we learn from others. There's events that go on in the world that teach us about ourselves, whether it's maybe the way the world works, the way nature works, the way technology works, and even the way that we work as human beings. So what a great way to be able to look at right now to change your trajectory with regards to your lifelong learning. You could pick up a book right now and thumb through it. Read the back cover, read the table of contents, read the intro. Just start there. I very recently handed a book to somebody that I look up to as an intelligent individual. They've had a lot of success. They've thrived in business. They do well in a lot of arenas. And we're having a discussion. At the end of the discussion, something they said triggered me. I grabbed a book that was like almost within arm's reach in my office. I said, hey, you've got to read this. You said this reminds me of this. I heard it here from this person. They're like you in this way. You got to check it out. And it was kind of random, I know, but it was very relevant. And what hit me like a ton of bricks was they said, yeah, I'm going to read this, but, I haven't read a book in, since high school. I'm thinking, man, I'm out of high school 20 plus years and you're 20 years older than me. Whoa, that's a powerful statement. But they did promise me they're going to read it. So if I can play any part in them even reading the back cover, checking out the table of contents or the bookmark page that I set for them when I'm like, hey, this is something you got to check out. It could be a perspective shift. It could be a paradigm shift, a way to look at things in a new way. And so that's where I realize, hey, you don't have to shove a book down someone's throat and force it on anybody. Sometimes any nugget of experiential knowledge you've picked up, you can offer. And if it's packaged up in a book, great. If it's packaged up in a YouTube video, great. If it's, packaged up in some experience or an event someone can go to with you, great. Throw the offer out there. Bring them along. I'll tell you right now, in the last 30 days, I've been exposed to new ideas, new teachings, info that's been inspiring. And it's really had me thinking, wow, what a paradigm shift. I've lived decades and hadn't looked at the world like that before. And I'm just now getting these concepts exposed to me. And I'm thinking, my, oh my, how grateful I am for adopting this mentality of lifelong learning 30 years ago. And what's wild about some of these things I'm learning today, I'm looking at the fact that the information, the source of the information is almost 100 years old. Lessons from 80 years ago that are just as relevant then as they are now. That is mind-blowing. And it's one of the things where I want to be able to continue to take note of and remind myself how I keep my mind aligned with growth and the power of this philosophy and the compound effect of time and openness. When I've had experiences that teach me how to see better in the last, let's call it 30, 60, 90 days, because I'm definitely in that season right now. There's a force, there's a momentum being built that I can't even see. And concepts that I'm being challenged with, my belief systems in some instances are being challenged. Like, okay, I've always looked at it that way because that's the way everyone else always looked at it, or that's the way it's always been. And we know that there's a lot of flaws in that. But once I was able to have this new experience that allowed me, or I allowed myself in this new experience to open my mind to the concept, you may recognize that some very valuable lessons could come from the most unexpected places, unexpected people, and unexpected times in your life. But you've got to still recognize that you're a candle, and your candle can be lit still. Your perspective can be shifted by aha that someone else had a century ago. All because you didn't cut off the flow of knowledge from a concept standpoint decades ago. So powerful. So really what I want to share here is my personal reasons why I've become a lifelong learner. I'm experiencing things right now and recognizing the compound effect over time and how it's enabling me to enhance and optimize my quality of life. When quote unquote life happens, it's not what happens, it's how we react to it. And when you can have a smarter reaction, you can have a more calculated outcome, a more controlled outcome. That's so much better than the idea of operating in react mode or drifting through life. You got to outwit the devil. So it's not a statement I'm making here that just continuing to learn is the answer to key to everything in the world. But when you've got improved insight, improved education, improved perspective, what you can control for your world, yeah, sky's the limit. And so I continually welcome that. And I continually encourage you to do the same thing, if nothing else, just to see what the possibilities are and what lifelong learning and adopting that mentality can do for you. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off this episode of Learn How to See Better, because I'm still learning how to see better. And you keep on listening, you'll keep on improving your vision the same way I am. Can't wait to share more of my lifelong learning lessons with you in future episodes. So keep on tuning in. Once again, this is your host, Drew Davis, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening, folks.